Hello, beautiful patrons. It's lovely to be out here again. It's Wednesday. It's actually not lunchtime. It's time I went back to work, but I thought I've got to give you an update because I've had another Wednesday. But before I do, yes, I can't turn the camera around while I do this. This is annoying. I really need to take two videos, one to show you the garden and one to give you an update, because yeah, there's no turn the camera around thing on this phone while I'm doing videos. However, the first update is that I've realised I need to change how I do my updates. It has penetrated my awareness, think that I need to tell this story in the public. It doesn't make sense for me to keep these weekly updates private, because how are people going to catch on with this vision and know what I'm doing if I don't do this in public? So I have decided that I'm going to go back to doing a Facebook Live once a week to tell people what I'm doing. And so instead of publishing my stories live, which is my stories public, which is what I've been doing, and actually those stories are very much about the journey of God, of me, I'm going to make those patron only. I'm also going to do other things just for my patrons. But as you can tell, I'm still working it out. I'm still working out the smartest way to do this. So I will do, from next week, I will do a Facebook Live on a Wednesday as an update to show this is the project, this is what I'm doing. So you will notice that change. And yes, I'll update the offering on Patreon. I really do appreciate you tolerating the fact that I keep chopping and changing this, because I'm still working out exactly how it should go. So that's what's happening. That's what I'm going to do from next week. So to give you the update, this week I actually did. You might remember I said I'm writing this thing about the three brains because I want to be able to explain very simply what the three brains are, and actually a little bit of how they work together and what they do. And I actually got to the end of describing the three brains today. It was like, oh my God, I actually did this, because it felt like I'd never get out of that. It's not that it's a lot of content. The challenge is to make it complete enough and simple enough and also really concise. And if you know, it's really easy to rabbit on for ages. It's much harder to be concise and to do it without using lots and lots of words, and also to keep the words really simple and deciding which words to use and which words not to use, all of that stuff. So I actually got through finishing and writing about the three brains, and then I felt a sort of a check inside myself, and I went and looked on my computer about how I was storing all of my files, and I had these folders with like different sections with bits inside them, and I thought, there's something about this isn't right. And this is how it works, really. Something doesn't feel right. And so what I ended up doing was taking everything out of those folders. They all have numbers at the front because I use a numbering system to keep things in the right order. And it means you can slot things in different places if you need to. And so I'm working out the system of organising the files, because there's going to be a lot of them. If you can imagine, all of the learning that I want to put across has to be put into little modules, and there'll be some kind of learning system. And the example I use is, if you've ever played or watched somebody play Civilization on a computer, when you are playing Civilization, you go through a process of researching technologies. And so you start in the Stone Age and you research fire and I don't know what else, and then you go to the Bronze Age, and then you go to the Iron Age, and then you go to the Industrial Age and the Technological Age, and so on. So and each little stage has all its modules, and when you tick them all off, you go to the next one. So I've got to structure the content correctly to do that, and that comes down to how I store the files on my computer. Otherwise, I can't even figure out what I've done and what's still to do. So I had to organise things. I had to rename a few things and think, okay, this part of what I've been doing with my file storage works, but that part doesn't. How am I going to do this? And there's this very clear feeling from inside me that tells me what to do, or what's wrong. And so I think I mentioned that. I just know when I'm doing the right thing. So I got that organised, and then I went back and looked at, I had these sort of orphan bits and pieces, and I was trying to work out, okay, what's the next person I need to do again? And what is it that I'm trying to do anyway? And what I'm actually trying to explain now, the larger context, because I've explained how thoughts lead to feelings and feelings lead to thoughts and thoughts lead to feeling. I mean, I've done that very simply. But and I've also talked about how there's a story that I'm telling about a person who's a sort of a sample person who has an experience that's stressful and they get stuck in that experience, like PTSD. And what I want to make the connection between is, okay, here's the three brains, and we have this habitual brain that memorizes things for us, and we have these thoughts and feelings, the loops, and here is just enough to explain that it's the habitual brain that memorizes that thought and feeling loop. And it can be a thought and feeling that's a good thought or feeling and that's helpful. Like, I want to walk, so I'm going to stand up and walk, and I've memorized that, and I've done that for my whole life, so I just know how to do that. Or it can be, well, I'm sad, or I'm afraid, or I'm angry because of X, Y, Z. But we get so that our feelings are just like this memorized thing that we just do. So I'm in the process of unpacking that very simply, very concisely. And I've got to the point at the moment, this is what I'm unpacking at the moment, is this whole thing of survival versus creation. Because there are only two states that we as humans can be in. We can either be in survival or we can be in creation. Now, if you're in survival, your brain has identified that there is a threat in the external environment. And so it's only going to do one of three things. You're going to run from that threat, you're going to fight the threat, or you're going to hide from it. And all the signals from the brain to the body are about enabling that to happen. And if you're running, fighting, or hiding from a Tyrannosaurus Rex, you don't need to digest food, you don't need to learn, you don't need to connect and love and trust with other people or other things. All you need to do is run, hide, or fight. And so the body is geared up to do that. And it's this great response because it allows us to survive. And when that threat is gone, well, then the signal changes and we go into creation, and then we can learn, and then we can connect with people, and then we can, get busy about our lives and look after our bodies, and the body gets the message, oh, there's no threat now. Okay, we can fix injuries, we can create new tissue, we can learn a new skill, we can connect with people, we can have some fun, we can chill out, we can sleep. So there's these two states. And so I'm in the process of unpacking survival versus creation. And I want to hook that up to the fact that the brain memorizes habits for us. The habit brain memorizes our habits, and we either memorize being in survival or we memorize being in creation. And then, of course, once I've done that, I'll have to talk about how we break those habits. And there will come a point, so I'm just going to keep writing. There's going to come a point where I will know that not that it's finished, but I'm very aware that this learning experience needs to have practical applications. So I'm going to have to develop some things, some little things that people can do along the way to apply what they've learned. Because if you learn stuff and you don't apply it, it's just these great ideas. But I want people to have experiences as they go. So I've got to do that. And as well as that, my husband, who's a bit of an artist, he's an artist, we'll be drawing some pictures because there are things to illustrate. There's basic simple anatomy of the brain because I want people to have a picture in their head. Oh yeah, that's my thinking brain, that's where it is. Oh, there's my feeling and survival brain. Okay, that's where that is. And here's my habit brain. I want people to understand these ideas because I want them to understand what's going on so that they have some sense of it, some understanding of it, and that's going to help them actually change how they're being because they'll understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And if you have listened to Joe Dispenza at all, you will know that I have learned that from him. So that's the progress this week. The other thing that's kind of important to me is that yesterday when I realised, oh yeah, it's Wednesday tomorrow, I'm going to spend the morning writing. For the first time I actually sort of thought, oh, cool. And by contrast, I realised that because a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think it was, a colleague asked, how are you enjoying your Wednesday mornings? How are you finding it? Are you enjoying it? And I replied to her and I said, well, I don't really think about it like that. It's just the thing owns me. And I don't know if you know what it's like to be owned by a vision or have something like that. And I actually saw surprise on my colleagues' faces. It's like, oh, really? She doesn't know? You know. Um, but I thought about being able to reply to her and say, well, actually, I am starting to look forward to it now. And I realise that it's taken me a while to kind of register the fact that I'm not spinning my wheels on this anymore. That I actually get to spend this chunk of time once a week and progress this project that I feel like I've wanted to do forever and not been able to do. And so it's like the brakes are coming off internally about, oh yeah, I actually get to do this. It may take a lot longer than it would if I could just do nothing else, but it is actually happening. And that's been really big, actually. That's a big thing for me to realise. This is actually happening now. Oh my God. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it is actually happening. Wow. So that's my update this week. I guess it'll be Wednesday that I will go live, and I'll try to make it a standard time. It'll probably have to be 12:30, which was my old slot, just a different day. So I'm going to have to stop and just walk out on the lawn and go live. Wow. That's what I'm going to do, because I need to make this visible so people can get involved and join you and join us, join me. So look out for more patron-only goodies. I'm just going to keep switching it around until I know that I've got what's right, what's going to work for you and for me and for everybody. So thank you so much for your attention, for spending your time with me today, and for joining me on this journey. Big love. So here's the garden. This is the magnolia that grew on its own. And I recognised the seedling, and I don't know, it's probably been 10 years, but now it's flowering. It's beautiful. And you can see the babiana with their purple flowers. And there's this random single hydrangea flower at the back here. There, I just pruned all of this to give the magnolia more room to grow. There is a heap of compost and stuff. It's actually really good. This area has always been a great weedy spot, and now it's serving my purposes by being a place where compost and things get put. So that's really cool. These are looking a little bit old, but this is my mother's freesia. She bred this one, and well, it's probably growing somewhere else in the world, but I really like it. So, yep, enjoy that. And now we have to go into the shade. I've planted all of these daffodils, and they're all pointing in the wrong direction, but if I turn the flowers around, there you go. They are lovely. They're some descendant of the poet's narcissus, which flowers much later. I'll show you that when it comes. But aren't they lovely? This daffodil is called Hawera. Hawera is a place a little bit up the island, and so maybe they were bred there. But they're lovely. And look, I even got some Boston ferns and planted them in the corner, and they're growing well. This is another little daffodil. It's a little bit worn, but still very bright. It's called Bobby Soxer. Go figure. I do know some of the names. Let me show you a little bit more, because there's just a lot happening here at the moment. No garden tour would be complete without a visit to the star magnolia, which is in full flower and starting to have leaves as well. So look at that. It's very bright. Smells good too. So you take a look at that. And if you go over the back of the ghost plant, there's another magnolia there too. I have to prune things away from that one so it's got room to grow. But, you know, the things around it also shelter it. So something else besides the ghost plant, which you can see it's getting long. Yes, it needs pruning, but I'm still enjoying the foliage. Up here, we have the first of the granny's bonnets, probably because all the others got a bit squashed, well, a bit buried, and they'll be later. But it's lovely to see the granny's bonnet flowering. And along here, we have some daffodils, some original bright yellow daffodils, which I really like. And of course the bluebells. They'll be prettier in the shade. You can see the colour better. They're not really open yet, but they're happening. So what else do we got? Here we have lots of bluebells. So you can see this is all fairly wild, and that's just how it needs to be. Anything else is too much work. There's some larkspur. And what else did I want to show you? That might be mostly it. See, the iris is coming up. They'll have big flower heads a little while from now. And the bright yellow Euryops also is a little bit worn. It's been out for a while, but it's very bright. And I'm grateful for its colour in winter. You can see something eats it. But isn't it fabulous? And up here, there's a singing tui somewhere. And the bright yellow of the kowhai tree. Yeah, the bird's in here. You can't see it unless it chooses to fly for us, but it's in there and you can hear it. Oh, there we go. They like the kowhai trees because there's a lot of nectar in the flowers. It's got a beautiful song. So there you are, blue sky and yellow flowers, one of my favourite things. Let me just zoom in a little. There you are. And the bird is there for us as well.